Good evening. In what's been just a few days of rapid advances by rebel fighters in Syria, the Assad regime appears to have fallen. In the past 24 hours, Syrian forces have captured the key city of Homs and then moved into the capital Damascus, which they say they've seized. The pace of their advance has been extraordinary. And here's what else has happened. The rebels say they've freed large numbers of people detained by Assad's regime from a notorious prison in Damascus. In an interview, the country's Prime Minister says he's been in contact with the rebel commander to discuss a transitional period. And the White House says US President Joe Biden is monitoring the developments. Well, before we continue, a warning to our viewers that our coverage tonight contains distressing content. But let's bring in our reporter, Claudia Farhart, who's been covering the Middle East conflict for SBS. Good evening, Claudia. How did this happen?
Incredibly quickly, Janice. It was only 8 days ago that this civil war really reignited when rebels took Aleppo in that surprise offensive. Fast forward to today, it appears the capital has fallen and the president has fled. These are pictures from Damascus in the last few hours. As you can see, jubilant scenes on the streets there. Rebel fighters entered the city today with little signs of resistance, and a short time ago, in a televised address, they declared they had taken control and ended the rule of Bashar al-Assad. We haven't heard from him or from his army on those claims just yet, but government soldiers did tell journalists a few hours ago that their commanders had told them the regime was over. The Assad family has been in control of Syria since 1971. It's a lengthy rule, but one that's unravelling rapidly. The first signs of trouble today came in the city of Homs on the path to the capital, also falling to the rebels. The Assad family has reigned supreme over Syria for more than half a century. Today, toppled. People in Homs making their feelings clear at the statue of Hafiz al-Assad. As rebel fighters seized control of the city from his son in full.
إخواني الكرام، نعيش في اللحظات الأخيرة لتحرير مدينة حمص بإذن الله تعالى. هذا حدث تاريخي الذي سيفصل بين الحق والباطل.
Videos showing the rebels going door to door in the city's central prison and freeing the detained. The Syrian Defence Ministry denying Homs has fallen, saying the situation was, quote, stable and safe.
حيث لم تتوقف المنصات الإعلامية التابعة للإرهابيين عن نشر الفيديوهات المضللة والأنباء الكاذبة حول ما يجري من أحداث على امتداد الجغرافيا السورية.
The importance of Homs, strategic and symbolic, is difficult to overstate. The city sits on a path between Damascus and Latakia, two of just three provincial capitals the government still controlled before today. It was also the beating heart of the 2011 uprising against Bashar al-Assad. At the clock tower, where protesters faced a violent government crackdown 13 years ago, celebrations. The rebels' sights then turning to the ultimate prize, the capital.
Praise be to God, Lord of the worlds. We liberated Aleppo, then Homs, and then we will go to Damascus, God willing.
They would arrive within hours. Early Sunday local time, residents in Damascus reported intense gunfire and street clashes. The rebels declaring they were inside the city and had it encircled. In videos posted online, Syrian army soldiers seen removing their uniforms. Iraqi officials say around 2,000 Syrian government soldiers have now fled across the border, abandoning the fight. Assad's allies, Iran and Russia, lending little assistance. But in Doha, eager to remind to the world Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is designated a terror group by the UN, US and Australia.
We are absolutely convinced of inadmissibility to use terrorists like Hayat Tahrir al-Sham to achieve geopolitical purposes.
Their status aside, tonight they appear to be the most powerful actors in Syria. The man in control for 24 years, nowhere to be found.
So, Claudia, tonight one of the really big questions is around the whereabouts of Bashar al-Assad. Is there any idea of where he is?
No, none at all really, Janice. What we do know is that he left the capital a few hours ago, just as we started getting word that the rebels had encircled the city. A Syrian airplane took off from Damascus about the same time. Originally, it was heading towards the Mediterranean Sea, but it then did a sharp U-turn before disappearing from the map. Bashar al-Assad has been at the helm of a brutal regime for 24 years now, and for that, he will be a wanted man.
Bashar al-Assad once had little political ambition, graduating from medical school. He was training to specialise in ophthalmology in London. But after his older brother and assumed successor, Basil, was killed in a car accident, his grooming for succession began, becoming a colonel in the Syrian army. In June of 2000, after his father, President Hafez Assad, died of a heart attack after 29 years in office, his reign officially began here in the Syrian parliament, when he was elected unopposed as president. 10 years later, after securing a second 7-year term, signs of unrest as the Arab Spring protests swept across the Middle East, the people decrying what they saw as systemic corruption. Assad responded by ending 48 years of emergency rule, abolishing state security courts and allowing citizens to protest peacefully. But this was the reality. Rights activists saying around 90 pro-democracy protesters were shot dead in the city of Daraa. The United States and the European Union demanding Assad step down. Jordan's King Abdullah would later join the calls. But Assad refused, to a sea of supporters criticising what he saw as a conspiracy against his government. As airstrikes rained down in rebel-held areas, hundreds of thousands of people were killed. The civil war that followed produced moments that horrified the world. The use of chemical weapons on civilians, a dazed little boy pulled from the rubble of an airstrike in Aleppo. A toddler named Alan Kurdi washed up on a Turkish beach after his family tried to flee the war. Thousands, including political prisoners, vanished inside the country's notorious prison system. Syria, once described as the jewel of the Arab world, began a rapid descent into ruin. The ancient city of Palmyra destroyed as IS swept through parts of Syria. A web of rebel and insurgent groups and foreign fighters, many with overlapping allegiances. Syria became a battleground for other countries as proxy wars. Russia emerging as a key player. Allied with Assad, Russian airstrikes raining down on his enemies.
شكرا لكم سيادة الرئيس.
Большое спасибо, господин президент.
بداية أود أن أشكركم وأشكر الدولة الروسية والمسؤولين الروس وطبعا قبل كل شيء الشعب الروسي على دعمه للشعب السوري.
In 2016, Assad dismissing his foreign detractors, including Australia, in an exclusive interview with SBS World News.
I'm fighting terrorists. Our army fighting terrorists. Our government is against terrorists. The whole institution are against terrorists. If you call fighting terrorism a butchery, that's another issue.
In 2017, then US President Donald Trump ordered airstrikes on a Syrian airbase after revelations another round of chemical weapons were unleashed on civilians. Assad always staunchly denied allegations of war crimes and insisted there one day could be a Syria without an Assad.
Of course, we don't own the country. My family doesn't own the country to say that only Assad should be in that position.
Rashida Yousafzai, SBS World News.
Before this past week, Assad had taken back much of the territory he'd lost in the early years of the civil war, and he'd effectively landed at a stalemate with those rebel groups, so much so that the Arab League, which had essentially banished Assad from its ranks over the war, welcomed him back just last year, believing the situation had stabilised. Tonight, there is no stability and likely a large power vacuum that will need to be filled. The rebels have declared a new era for Syria, but what that era will look like, Janice, at this stage is really anyone's guess.
Thanks so much. Our reporter Claudia Farhart updating us on those fast-moving developments in Syria. And shortly we'll take a deeper look at the situation in Syria, where we'll